The night sky above the colony world was filled with fear, though no one dared to speak it aloud. Ships of light had come, vast and glowing, cutting through the darkness like burning suns. They did not arrive with peace, they came with arrogance. They called themselves immortals. Their voices echoed across every channel. "Calm and proud bow, for your gods have returned," they said. Their language was cold and heavy, as if each word carried 1,000 years of domination. They gave no warning, no chance for talks. They demanded surrender, and when no answer came fast enough, they showed their power. The first cities fell in minutes. Weapons of fire rained from their ships, tearing through towers and streets. No shield could hold, no bunker could hide. The people screamed and ran, but there was nowhere to run. The skies themselves were filled with immortal warships, dark shadows with glowing edges, each one larger than the human cities they destroyed. The defenders tried, fleets of human ships rose, sleek frigates, brave cruisers, carriers full of young pilots. But the immortals cut through them as if they were made of paper. A single flash of alien energy would split a human vessel in half. Men and women inside did not even have time to cry out. The human admirals spoke of retreat, their voices broken. Their fleets vanished in hours, rumors spread. Carried by survivors who fled from broken colonies, the immortals could not die. Even when one of them was shot down, they would rise again. People whispered of glowing figures walking unharmed from wreckage, their eyes burning with cold fire, their wounds closing in seconds. Soldiers who swore they had killed them saw the same enemy again the next day. They laughed at bullets, mocked at fire. "We are beyond death," they said. "We are forever." Hope began to die in the hearts of men. Families left behind on doomed planets prayed to be spared, but the immortals had no mercy. They enslaved, they destroyed, they turned proud cities into ashes across human space. Silence followed where the immortals passed like a shadow across the stars. Yet in the silence, whispers began to spread. Hidden in the darkest corners of space, beyond the reach of the immortals, something was being built. Some said it was only a story to comfort the fearful. Others swore they had seen shapes moving in the asteroid fields. Engineers working day and night under orders sealed by Earth Command. A project so secret that even most admirals did not know of it. On the colony of Damar, a young child stood with his mother, watching the sky burn. A giant alien vessel hovered above, its lights were blinding. Its voice thundered across the ground, promising endless rule. The child asked in a trembling voice, "Are they really gods?" The mother held him tight and whispered, "No, they bleed like us. They only want us to believe they cannot die." But the truth was cruel. No human had yet found a way to make an immortal stay dead. Every soldier who tried returned broken or never returned at all. The immortals marched across planets as though walking through gardens. And still they laughed. Their laughter carried across human frequencies. Echoing in every ear, one by one, colonies went dark. One by one, fleets vanished. The galaxy seemed to fall into the hands of the self-proclaimed gods. Humanity's last hope seemed like dust scattered on the wind. The few leaders who remained alive gathered in secret. Their faces were pale, their voices low. They spoke of surrender. They spoke of survival. They asked if it was better to kneel and live than to fight and die. But not all agreed in the shadows of those councils. One name was whispered again and again, a warship, built for no other reason than to fight the impossible. A warship whispered of like a ghost. A ship of vengeance, a ship of silence. Its name was not yet spoken aloud, but those who had seen fragments of its plans knew it was unlike anything humanity had ever created. The immortals did not know, not yet, they laughed. They declared victory before the war was even truly fought. They called themselves eternal rulers. They called humans children of dust. But somewhere far from their reach, in the heart of an asteroid field, engines were being tested, weapons were being charged, armor was being forged. The first spark of resistance had not yet been lit, but it was waiting in silence. The immortals claimed to be gods, and for now it seemed true, but soon they would meet something they had never known before, something they could not imagine, something born from human grief, human rage, and human will. And when that day came, the stars themselves would shake. For even gods could bleed, even gods could fall, and one battlecruiser would prove it. Deep inside the frozen silence of an asteroid field, a secret burned, hidden from every sensor. Masked by drifting rocks and shadows, human engineers worked like ghosts. They were not building another cruiser, not another fragile ship to be torn apart in the first clash. They were building something else, something no one had dared dream of, The project had no official name at first. It was spoken of only in whispers. A few called it madness, a few called it vengeance. But the men and women who worked on it called it salvation. They were tired of fleeing, tired of hearing about colonies burning, tired of watching the immortals laugh. If humanity had to die, then it would die with teeth bared. The ship took shape slowly, hidden in darkness. Plates of black alloy were fused together, each one thick enough to shrug off enemy fire. The skeleton of the vessel stretched longer than a city. Rail cannons ran down its spine like sharpened claws. Plasma lances hummed with deadly energy. Its engines were monstrous, designed to tear space itself open. It was not just a ship, it was a weapon. It was a beast forged for war. At the heart of the project stood Captain Arik Kane, a man carved by battle and grief. His scars ran across his face like broken maps, reminders of every fight he had survived. His eyes carried the weight of all he had lost, his crew, his family, his home. He had been given command not because of rank, but because he refused to break. His voice was harsh, his orders colder than steel, but every soul who met his gaze felt something strange. A spark, a promise that he would drag humanity out of the grave or join it inside. The crew chosen for the ship were not ordinary men and women. They were volunteers who had nothing left to lose. Pilots whose squadrons had been destroyed. Engineers who had watched their families die. Soldiers who had seen planets burn. Each of them carried rage inside like fire. They were not seeking survival. They were seeking a chance to strike back. When the final hull was sealed, the ship awoke. Its lights shimmered across the dark field, turning asteroids into mirrors of steel and fire. Consoles lit up, engines rumbled, and the first pulse of power surged through its veins. The crew stood silent as the bridge hummed with energy. Every heartbeat seemed to echo in the silence. Then the main screen flared, revealing the face of Kane. His voice rang through the corridors, steady and sharp. "This is no ordinary ship," he said. "This is the Revenant, and we are its soul." The name spread like fire. Revenant, the one who returns from death. The ship was humanity's answer to the immortals. A shadow rising against false gods, it was built to be feared. Built to show the universe that humans were not prey. The first launch shook the field. Rocks split and tumbled as the Revenant moved forward. Its engines burned like the fury of a dying star. But silence followed the launch. The crew knew their task was suicide. The immortals ruled the stars with thousands of ships. Humanity had only one Revenant, yet no one on board wavered. They strapped themselves in, they tested weapons. They whispered to themselves of the families they had lost. Each man and woman became part of the ship. Kane sat alone in the captain's chair, staring at the endless dark. His hand rested on the console, and for a moment, he thought of the child he once had, a daughter who laughed under the skies of Earth before the war began. He whispered to the stars, "This is for you." Then his voice hardened. "Set course. We are hunting gods." The Revenant moved like a predator. Its black hull swallowed light. Its weapons glowed with silent fury. Around it, asteroids drifted as if bowing to its passage. No alien sensor detected it. No enemy guessed its birth. Humanity's secret was now free. The engineers who watched from hidden stations cheered as the ship vanished into the void. Some cried, some fell to their knees. For the first time in years, they believed. The immortals had taken everything from them. But now humans had sent something back in distant space. The immortals continued their laughter. Their fleets drifted over broken worlds. Their voices filled every channel, promising eternal rule. They called themselves gods. They believed nothing could stop them. But in the blackness between stars, the Revenant prowled. Each pulse of its engine was a heartbeat of vengeance. Each weapon it carried was a question carved in fire. Could gods bleed? Could gods die? The crew waited in silence, waiting for the first target. The first battle would decide everything. If they failed, humanity would vanish. If they succeeded, a spark of hope would ignite across the stars. As the ship crossed into the edge of an occupied system, Kane leaned forward. His voice was a blade drawn from its sheath. "Weapons ready," he ordered. "We strike at dawn." The crew locked eyes. No one afraid, no one turning away. And in that silence, a truth took shape. The immortals had claimed the galaxy. They had claimed eternity. But they had never faced the Revenant. They had never faced a crew that had nothing left but the will to fight. The launch was over, the hunt had begun. The gods had laughed for too long. Now humanity would answer. And when the Revenant spoke, the stars themselves would listen. The Revenant slid from the shadows of deep space like a predator. Its black hull reflected no light, its engines whispered silence. Around it the stars stretched endless, and before it lay the first system under alien rule. Once, long ago, human voices filled those planets with laughter. Now they echoed with screams. Captain Arik Kane stood at the command bridge. His scarred hand rested on the arm of the chair, his eyes fixed on the tactical screen. "Report," he said. His voice was calm, but inside him burned a storm. "Multiple alien vessels detected," the sensor officer replied. Her voice shook. "Dreadnoughts, frigates, troop carriers, an entire occupation fleet." The numbers glowed red on the display. It was suicide to face them. Suicide, unless the Revenant was everything it promised to be. The system below told its own story. A planet smothered in smoke, cities reduced to ash. Human prisoners marched under glowing alien eyes. Giant warships hung in orbit, each one radiating arrogance. The Immortals had claimed this world as their own. They thought it broken. They thought humanity finished. Kane's voice cut through the silence. "We are not here to watch." He leaned forward, his shadow stretching long in the red light of the bridge. Weapons hot locked targets. The crew moved as one. Fingers raced across consoles. Rail cannons rumbled as power surged into their coils. Plasma lances glowed with energy. The Revenant was no longer hiding, it was ready to strike. The alien dreadnoughts shifted. Their sensors picked up a shadow that should not exist. They broadcast laughter across human channels. "Mortals," they said, "fools. Do you crawl out of your hole to die before your gods?" Their voices were cruel, filled with the certainty of immortality. Kane did not answer. He simply raised his hand, and then brought it down. "Fire!" The first rail salvo screamed across the void. Pure kinetic fury ripped through space. The shot struck a dreadnought in the heart. Armor shattered, decks tore apart, and before alien eyes could widen, the mighty ship split in two. A shockwave of fire rolled across the planet's orbit. The bridge of the Revenant shook with cheers. The crew stared in disbelief for the first time. An immortal warship was gone, not wounded, not rebuilt, gone, smoke and debris scattered into the dark. But the moment of joy was short. The alien fleet roared to life. Beams of energy lanced toward the Revenant. Dazzling lines of light, they struck the ship's armor, shaking it violently, but the Revenant held. Its black hull glowed, but it did not break. "Return fire," Kane commanded. Plasma lances tore through the darkness, ripping apart alien frigates. Smaller ships exploded like sparks, one after another. The Revenant moved with deadly grace, weaving between blasts, cutting with claws of fire. Across alien comms, voices screamed, "Impossible, impossible, mortals cannot kill us. We are eternal." Their words cracked with fear for the first time, and still the Revenant struck on the planet below. Enslaved humans lifted their heads. They had grown used to silence, to chains, but now they saw fire streaking across the skies. They saw alien ships burning. They heard the voices of their so-called gods crying out in rage, and hope flickered inside them, fragile, trembling, but alive. One alien commander, towering and cruel, stood on the bridge of his ship, his glowing eyes narrowed. "This vessel, it should not exist," he hissed. "I will tear it apart myself." His hand slammed against the control console, ordering every ship in range to focus fire. The Revenant was swallowed by light. Blinding beams rained upon it for a moment. The void was nothing but fire. The crew held their breath. Alarms screamed, shields buckled. But when the fire cleared, the Revenant still stood. Its hull scarred but unbroken. Kane rose to his feet. His voice thundered across the bridge. "Again fire everything." Rail cannons and plasma lances unleashed hell. Another dreadnought shattered, explosions chaining across its decks. The alien commander screamed as his ship broke apart. His last words cut across every frequency. "You cannot kill gods, we are forever." But his ship was gone, torn into fragments drifting in the void. Silence followed for a heartbeat. The crew of the Revenant stared at the wreckage, breathing hard for the first time since the war began. Humanity had not run for the first time they had struck. And the enemy bled. Then came the alien response. Not laughter, not mockery, but fury. A message filled the bridge of the Revenant. Cold and sharp. "Revenant, you are marked. We will follow you to the edge of every star. We will erase your name. Your kind will suffer for daring to wound us." The crew felt a chill. They knew the Immortals would never forgive this insult. They knew every fleet would now hunt them, but Kane's face was calm. His scarred lips curved into the faintest smile. "Good," he whispered, "let them come." The Revenant turned, engines blazing, drifting deeper into the stars. Behind it floated the broken shells of alien ships, proof that gods could fall. Ahead of it lay endless war, and for the first time in years, humanity had teeth. For the first time, the Immortals were afraid, and the Revenant was only getting started. The Revenant drifted through the cold dark, scars glowing across its hull from the last battle. The crew moved with quiet focus, repairing systems, reloading rail slugs, sealing plasma vents. No one spoke of fear anymore. They had seen gods bleed, and that truth burned brighter than any star. But Captain Eric Kane was restless. He stood alone on the bridge, staring at the wreckage of alien ships still tumbling in space. His instincts whispered that the battle had revealed more than shattered hulls. Something was hidden behind the Immortals' arrogance, something that made them believe in their own eternity. It began with a signal, faint and strange. Caught by the Revenant's deep scanners, it was not a distress call, not a military order. It was something older, something layered in patterns of light and sound. The ship's AI displayed it across the holoscreen, an endless cycle of repeating symbols. The science officer leaned forward, her eyes wide. "It's not random. Captain," she whispered, It's the Immortals' code." The crew gathered as fragments of intercepted transmissions appeared. Each battle, each death, each destruction of their ships ended with this signal. Kane's jaw tightened. "So that's how they rise again," he said. "They aren't gods. They are copying themselves." The truth struck the crew like a storm. The Immortals were not immortal. They were transferring their minds, shifting their essence into crystalline cores that sat hidden in their ships. When one body fell, another was waiting. When a vessel burned, the pilot returned. Memories and voices carried through light and code. Hope and fury mixed across the Revenant's bridge. They had found the key if the cores could be destroyed. The Immortals could die like anyone else. Kane's eyes darkened. "Set a course, we find one of those cores. And we take it!" The Revenant slipped into the shadows again, hunting not for fleets, but for secrets. It tracked the signal to a ruined station orbiting a dead moon. The station pulsed faint light, guarded by only a few alien frigates. The Immortals did not imagine mortals could uncover their truth. They were careless, the crew prepared for boarding. The silence before launch was heavy. Soldiers checked their rifles, blades and armor. Each of them carried ghosts. Each of them carried vengeance. Kane stood before them, his voice steady. "You've seen their laughter, you've seen their fire, but today you'll see their fear. Remember, they bleed, they scream, they are not gods. They are liars! Dropships cut through the void." Slamming into the ruined station, metal shrieked as doors blew open. Humans poured inside with weapons ready. The halls glowed with alien light, curved walls pulsing with strange veins of crystal. Shadows moved, tall, towering figures with burning eyes. The Immortals. The clash was brutal. Beams of alien fire scorched the walls. Human rifles cracked back, grenades thundered. Smoke filled the station as screams echoed. Soldiers fought with desperation, knowing every second mattered. One Immortal strode forward, twice the height of a man, his body armored in living metal. A human squad opened fire, rounds sparking uselessly. But when one soldier leapt onto the creature's back and drove a blade through the seams of its neck, the Immortal howled, a sound of rage and pain, a sound too human to be divine, blood spilled, glowing faintly. And the giant collapsed for the first time. Humans stood over the corpse of an Immortal, and it did not rise deeper in the station. Kane and his team found it, a chamber of crystal towers, each one pulsing with light. Data shimmered across their surfaces, thousands of voices whispering in alien tones. It was a library of souls, a vault of stolen eternity. "Destroy them all," Kane ordered. His voice carried no hesitation. Charges were placed, fire sparked. The chamber shook as explosions ripped through the crystals. The voices turned into screams, fading into silence. The floor shook. The walls cracked. The station began to collapse. But before the humans could escape, a figure stepped from the smoke. An Immortal commander, his eyes blazing with fury. He raised a weapon taller than a man. "You dare touch eternity?" he thundered. His voice shook the metal itself. "You dare to wound the gods?" Kane raised his rifle, firing into the commander's chest. The creature staggered, roared, and rushed forward. The two collided in a storm of steel and fire. Kane's blade met alien flesh, sparks flying at last. He drove the blade through the commander's chest crystal. The immortal froze, his burning eyes dimming. And then, for the first time, an immortal truly died. The soldiers pulled Kane back as the station tore itself apart. Dropships roared into the void, carrying survivors and fragments of shattered crystal. Behind them, the alien station exploded, shards scattering like dying stars. On the bridge of the Revenant, silence held as the dropships docked. The crew gathered, staring at the fragments of alien core they had recovered. A scientist lifted one, its light flickering weakly. "This," she said, "is their soul. Break enough of these, and they end." Kane's eyes were cold as he stared at the core. "Then we break every last one, far away." In the dark halls of Alien Command, the Immortals screamed in rage. Their voices shook the channels of space. For the first time, their eternity had been wounded. For the first time, they felt the edge of fear. And the Revenant, scarred but unbroken, prepared for the next hunt. The war had changed. Humanity had found the crack in the armor of gods. And the Immortals knew their throne was no longer unshakable. The Revenant glided through the void like a phantom, its hull patched with scars from past battles, but its spirit unbroken. Every member of the crew carried new fire in their eyes. They had seen Immortals die. They had touched the secret of their false eternity. For the first time, humanity believed victory was not a dream, but a possibility, yet victory has a price. And the Immortals were not silent. Across the galaxy, their fleet stirred. Their voices thundered across human channels. Filled with fury, "The Revenant has wounded us. The Revenant must be erased. Mortals must learn their place." They promised vengeance. And vengeance came swiftly. It began with whispers in deep space, false transmissions, fake distress calls from colonies that did not exist. Lures scattered like bait. Kane watched them from the bridge, his scarred face unreadable. "They want us," he muttered. "They want us where they can surround us," the crew argued. Some said to avoid the traps, to stay hidden, to strike only when shadows favored them. But Kane's voice cut through the debate like steel. "No, we will walk into their jaws, and when they close, we will break their teeth." The trap was sprung in the Serene system, a place of twin suns and shattered moons. The Revenant emerged from hyperspace to find an ocean of alien warships waiting. Hundreds of vessels formed a ring of fire. Their glowing hulls pulsed like angry gods, their weapons primed. Kane stared at the display and felt the weight of it. "So this is how they mean to end us," he whispered. The first blast came without warning. Beams of alien energy slashed across the void. The Revenant twisted and dived, its armor screaming under the force. Shields flickered. Rail cannons roared back. The first alien cruiser was split apart. Fire bleeding into space, the battle became chaos. Alien dreadnoughts closed in, their cores glowing with immortal fury. The Revenant fought like a beast, rail slugs tearing through hulls, plasma lances ripping decks into firestorms. But for every ship destroyed, 3 more pressed forward. On the bridge, alarms wailed, sparks rained from consoles. A young officer screamed as fire erupted beside him. Another crew member was thrown across the deck by an impact. Kane barked orders, his voice steady despite the storm. "Seal the breach, reroute power, keep firing." The Immortals laughed through comms. "Revenant, you are nothing. Your flesh will burn, your ship will crumble, your hope will die." But the crew of the Revenant answered not with words, but with fire their weapons spoke. And alien laughter turned into curses. Hours felt like days. The Revenant carved through the blockade, but wounds bled across its hull. Engines screamed, systems failed. Crew members fell one after another, their names whispered in silence as others took their place. Blood and sweat turned the ship into a shrine of sacrifice. Then came the moment when survival seemed impossible. A cluster of dreadnoughts boxed the Revenant in, their cores pulsing like hearts of stars. Weapons locked, Kane saw the inevitable, his voice was low but unshaken. "Prepare the dark jump." The bridge froze. The dark jump was an experimental drive, untested, dangerous. It could tear the ship apart as easily as it could save it. But there was no other choice. "Do it," Kane ordered. The Revenant's engines flared with unnatural light. The ship trembled as reality itself began to tear. Space twisted, stars bent. The crew held onto their stations as gravity screamed, "Jump!" Kane roared, and the Revenant vanished in a blur of darkness. Behind it, alien beams cut only empty space. The trap closed on shadows. The Immortals howled in fury, their prey gone. But the victory was not without cost. The Revenant reappeared in unknown space. Its hull fractured, its systems broken. Fires spread through the corridors. Dozens of crew were dead, their bodies laid in silence. Kane stood among the smoke and ash, his eyes hollow, each loss carved deeper into him. Yet still he stood. "Report," he demanded. The officers checked what was left. Engines crippled, weapons failing. Navigation blind, the Revenant had escaped. But it was half dead, and in the silence of this new place something stirred. The crew felt it first as whispers on the sensors, faint echoes of something vast, something old. Kane watched as the stars ahead revealed ruins, ancient structures floating around a dead sun, towers of stone and metal, larger than mountains, broken and hollow. They were older than humanity, older perhaps than the immortals themselves. The crew stared in awe and fear. One officer whispered, "What is this place?" Kane's voice was grim. A graveyard, yet the sensors did not lie. Something moved within the ruins, something that had followed them through the dark jump. The Revenant had escaped the trap, but it had not escaped the hunt. The immortals were still coming. And in this haunted place of dead civilizations, the next battle waited. Kane clenched his fist, fire burning in his scarred eyes. "Then we fight again," he said. His voice carried across the battered ship, stronger than the alarms. "We fight until they learn that even gods can fall." And so the Revenant, bleeding but alive, prepared once more. The trap had failed, the gods had not won. And in the dark grave of ancient stars, humanity's defiance burned brighter than ever. The Revenant limped through the darkness, her engines coughing sparks, her hull torn open in a dozen places inside. The air smelled of smoke and burned metal. Every corridor carried echoes of battle. Blood smeared across bulkheads, scorch marks carved into steel, faces missing from the stations they once manned. The crew moved like ghosts, wounded but alive, bound together by something deeper than duty. Outside the stars were silent, but this was no ordinary system. The Revenant had jumped into a place where time itself seemed broken. A dead sun loomed in the center, its light long extinguished. Around it floated ruins larger than cities, ancient stations and shattered ships drifting like the bones of forgotten gods. The crew whispered of the place, their voices hushed. Some swore they felt eyes watching them. Others said the silence pressed too heavy. Kane stood on the bridge, his jaw clenched. His gaze swept across the wreckage displayed on the hollow screen. "This isn't natural," he muttered. "This is history. The immortals have been here before." The science officer nodded slowly, her voice tight. "Captain, these ruins are millions of years old, whoever built them. They were wiped out. Same pattern, same destruction we've seen on our colonies. The immortals did this." The words cut deep. Humanity was not the first to face these so-called gods. Countless civilizations had risen and fallen before, crushed under the same arrogance. The ruins whispered one truth: if humanity failed, it would vanish into dust like them. The crew worked through exhaustion to patch systems. Engineers crawled through sparking conduits, sealing breaches with trembling hands. Medics treated the wounded on the cold floor. The ship groaned with every repair, but the Revenant lived. Then came the signal, faint at first, like a heartbeat buried under noise. The AI magnified it, a rhythm of pulses, a code. Kane's eyes narrowed. "The cores," he whispered. "This place still holds their memory banks." The ruins were not empty. Deep inside the ancient wreckage, the immortals had left fragments of themselves, archives of their stolen immortality. If humanity could recover those fragments, perhaps they could understand how to destroy the immortals forever. But as the Revenant moved closer, the sensors screamed. Something vast had followed them through the dark jump. Shapes emerged from the black alien warships cloaked in shadows. Their hulls burned with furious light. At the center of them loomed a dreadnought larger than any the crew had ever seen. Its core glowed like a living star. The crew felt the weight of it. Fear clawing at their chests, one officer whispered. "They found us." Kane's reply was steel. "No, they hunted us. But this is where they'll bleed." The Revenant drifted into the ruins, weaving between shattered towers and broken rings of metal. The alien fleet followed, their beams slicing through ancient debris. Explosions rippled across the graveyard, lighting dead stone with new fire on the bridge. Kane's orders came like hammer strikes. "Helm, thread us through the wreckage. Keep them close, weapons, aim for their cores. No wasted shots." The crew obeyed, every hand steady despite the tremors. Rail cannons thundered. Plasma lances carved through the dark. Alien frigates shattered against the ruins, debris scattering like sparks, but the enemy pressed harder. The massive dreadnought loomed ever closer, its weapons spitting fire that tore chunks from the Revenant's hull. The ship shook violently, consoles bursting. A young gunner cried out as fire engulfed his station. Another officer fell silent. Kane's heart tightened with every loss, but he stood unbroken. His voice roared above the chaos. "Hold the line. We are the Revenant." Amid the battle, something stirred in the ruins. A hidden chamber cracked open as alien fire tore it apart. Strange devices drifted into the void. Glowing with a faint pulse, the science officer shouted, "Captain, those are ancient cores older than the Immortals themselves." For a heartbeat, time froze. The truth burned clear. The Immortals had not created immortality. They had stolen it. They were scavengers, parasites feeding on the graves of those who came before. Kane's rage became fire. "They're thieves, not gods," he spat. "And we'll end them like thieves." The Revenant swung around, weapons blazing. It struck at the dreadnought with every rail slug it had left. The massive ship trembled, its glowing core flickering. The alien commander's voice thundered across the channels. "You cannot win. You are dust. You are forgotten already." Kane answered with silence and fire. The last plasma lance screamed across the void, piercing the dreadnought's core. For a moment, the universe held its breath. Then the giant erupted in a storm of light. A shockwave rippled through the ruins, breaking towers apart, tossing ships into fire. The Immortals' roar of fury filled the comms. Then cut to silence. The Revenant staggered through the blast. Hull cracking, power failing. But it lived. Smoke and flame filled its halls. The crew slumped in exhaustion. Bruised, bloodied, but alive in the wreckage of the ruins. Fragments of alien cores drifted. Kane stared at them, his voice low. "These are the chains they forged to bind eternity. Break them and the gods die forever." The crew nodded, their faces hard with grim purpose. Humanity was no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting to finish what countless dead civilizations could not. The Revenant, battered and burning, set its course once more. Behind it lay a graveyard of broken gods. Ahead of it lay war. The Immortals still ruled the stars, but now they knew the truth. They were not eternal. They were not divine. They were thieves, and the Revenant was coming for them. The Revenant drifted back into human space, a scarred shadow carrying both victory and warning. Word spread faster than light. The gods had bled. The gods had fallen. Colonies whispered the name of the ship as though it were a prayer. Revenant, the Immortals, furious, gathered their full strength. They would not allow a single human vessel to shatter their illusion of eternity. In the council chambers of broken earth, leaders debated surrender. But out in the void, Captain Arik Kane knew surrender was already impossible. "They will never forgive us," he said, staring at the tactical map that glowed above the bridge. "We've proven they can die, and for that alone, they will burn us to ash." His crew stood in silence, their faces pale but resolute. Scouts soon brought grim news. A massive alien fleet was on the move, larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Thousands of warships, dreadnoughts, carriers, and cruisers converging on a single path. At the heart of it was something even worse, a fortress ship, a moving citadel known as Broken Heaven. It was said to hold the immortal High Commander himself, the being who claimed to carry the First Corps, the heart of their false eternity. The Revenant stood alone. There was no time to build another, no time to call reinforcements. Kane gathered his crew and spoke. His voice was low, his eyes burning. "We don't fight for victory today. We fight so humanity knows it can fight at all if we fall. Let it be with fire that lights the way for others." The enemy came like a storm. The void outside filled with alien ships, their hulls glowing with crimson fire. Their voices thundered across every channel. "Mortals, your defiance ends here. Your Revenant will be broken. Your worlds will bow once more." Kane gave no reply. He simply raised his hand, and the Revenant's weapons spoke. Rail cannons roared, hurling slugs through the dark. Plasma lances cut arcs of fire. Alien frigates shattered under the first volley. Exploding into clouds of debris, the Revenant wove between the blasts, its black armor flaring with scars. But the fleet pressed closer. Hundreds of beams rained down, striking the Revenant from all sides. The ship shook, alarms screamed, bulkheads cracked. Blood spilled across the decks as crew were thrown from their stations. Still, no one faltered. Gunners kept firing. Engineers sealed ruptures with their bare hands. Medics worked in smoke and chaos, Kane stood like stone, every order sharp and certain. Target the cores, do not waste a single shot. Make them bleed. And the Revenant answered. Shot after shot tore into alien vessels. Rail slugs pierced dreadnought hearts. Plasma fire ripped immortal bodies from their thrones. The gods screamed, their voices echoing in terror for the first time. But the tide was relentless. For every alien ship that fell, more swarmed forward. They circled the Revenant, their weapons pounding like a drum of doom. One by one, systems began to fail. Shields collapsed, ammunition dwindled. Entire sections of the ship went dark. Then came the voice of the High Commander, booming across the void. You dare strike at heaven itself? You dare wound eternity? I will unmake you, mortal. His fortress ship loomed ahead, a monstrous citadel of crystal and steel. Towers of glowing cores pulsed within its hull like beating hearts. It was not just a warship, it was a shrine to their stolen immortality. Kane stared at it, his scarred face cold. There, he said, pointing. That's the heart. That's where this ends. The crew knew what it meant. To strike the fortress was madness. To charge it was death, but no one turned away. Their voices rose together, ragged but fierce. For Earth. For the fallen. The Revenant turned its prow toward the fortress. Engines burning red, alien ships swarmed in its path. But the Battlecruiser plowed through. Rail slugs split hulls apart. Plasma fire cut swathes of destruction. Every inch forward cost blood. Every meter forward tore the ship closer to ruin. On the lower decks, fires consumed corridors. Men and women fought to hold the ship together with their own bodies. Sacrifices were made in silence, but the Revenant did not stop. It moved like a wounded beast refusing to die. The fortress ship loomed larger. Its weapons unleashed hell. Beams tore through the Revenant's hull. Entire sections ripped away into space. Still, the ship pushed on. Kane rose from his chair, his voice a roar. All power to the main cannon, every last spark. The engineers obeyed, rerouting energy from life support, from engines, from everything. The ship itself seemed to cry out as power surged into the rail cannon. The High Commander laughed, his voice dripping with scorn. One shot cannot kill heaven, mortal, you are nothing. Kane's reply was fire. The rail cannon unleashed its final charge, a slug the size of a shuttle screaming across the void. It struck the fortress ship at the core. The world seemed to freeze for a breathless second. Nothing happened, then light erupted, a blinding storm that tore across the sky. The fortress ship cracked open, towers collapsing, cores shattering. The High Commander's voice howled in rage and disbelief. No, this cannot be. His roar dissolved into silence as the citadel exploded, fragments scattering like dying stars. The shockwave hurled the Revenant into darkness. The ship groaned, torn nearly apart. Fires burned unchecked. Half the crew lay dead or wounded. But the fortress was gone. Broken heaven was broken indeed. On the bridge, silence fell. The surviving crew stared at the wreckage, their eyes wide with exhaustion and awe. They had faced the gods at their strongest, and they had survived. Kane's face was shadowed, his voice quiet. This isn't the end, he said. This was only the beginning. The immortals will rise again, but now they know fear. Now they know we can reach their throne. The Revenant drifted alone amid the wreckage, bleeding fire into the void. But across the galaxy hope rose, for the gods had been challenged, and humanity still stood. And in the silence of space, a truth rang louder than all the immortals' lies. Heaven could break and gods could die. The Revenant was barely alive, drifting through the ruins of broken heaven. Her hull cracked open in a dozen places, engines coughing sparks and fire crawling through her veins. The crew moved like shadows in smoke, bloodied, burned, but breathing. They had done the impossible. They had shattered the fortress of the immortals. They had killed their High Commander, but victory tasted of ash. Dozens of crew lay silent in makeshift shrouds. Names whispered in grief. Whole decks had been ripped away. Kane walked among the wounded, his scarred face unreadable. His voice carried steady as stone. We are not finished, not yet if they fall. Then all of them must fall. Outside, alien wreckage floated in silence. Glowing fragments of shattered crystal cores spinning like broken stars. The illusion of immortality was cracking. Across the galaxy, immortals staggered, some falling lifeless as their cores failed. Others howled in rage and fear for the first time. Eternity slipped from their grasp. The Revenant's AI spoke in a trembling voice, its code flickering from damage. Captain, long-range scans show collapse. Immortals are dying everywhere. Their networks are breaking. The crew gasped, disbelief and hope mixing like fire and ice. But hope brought danger. The immortals were not beaten yet. From the edges of the system came the remains of their fleets. Desperate, furious, burning with revenge. They would destroy the Revenant even if it cost them everything. On the bridge, the tactical display filled with red markers. Hundreds of ships closing fast. Kane's eyes hardened, his voice cut like a blade. Then we ended here. The crew stared at him. Exhausted, wounded, their ship broken, but in their eyes. No one turned away, they strapped in at their stations. Hands steady despite trembling bodies, if this was the last stand. Then they would make it one the immortals would never forget. The alien fleet opened fire, beams of furious light flooding the void, the Revenant twisted armor screeching, rail cannons answering. Plasma lances screamed as they tore through alien hulls. Explosions lit the sky. The battle raged like firestorm against hurricane. But the immortals were endless. Every shot the Revenant fired cut one ship, only for two more to come. Kane knew they could not outlast the storm, not with a broken ship and bleeding crew. His mind fixed on a single truth. If they destroyed the true core of the immortals, all would end, and then he saw it. Far in the distance, behind the enemy lines, drifted a colossal vessel unlike any other. Larger even than broken heaven. Its hull was a cathedral of crystal, its heart glowing with the light of countless stolen souls. The AI's voice trembled. Captain, scans confirm that is their source, the prime core. If we destroy that, there will be no return for them. Kane stood tall, his voice a growl. Then that is our target, the crew answered with silence. Not of fear, but of acceptance. Every soul on board understood this charge was death. But it would mean victory for all of humanity. Kane's voice thundered across the bridge. All power to the engines, all power to the cannon. We aim for their heart, the Revenant surged forward, bleeding fire as it plowed through alien ships. Rail slugs split frigates apart. Plasma fire carved burning paths. The crew fought like demons, every shot, every scream, every sacrifice pushing them closer. Alien voices shrieked across the comms. No, you will not touch the core. Mortals, you will burn before eternity. But the Revenant did not stop. She was a corpse dragging herself forward. Fueled by the rage and grief of her crew, the prime core loomed larger. Its glow seared the eyes. Its voice whispered across the stars, promising endless life. Kane spat into the silence. You are not gods. You are thieves. The Revenant's cannon charged. Power drained from every system. Lights flickered, life support failed. The ship herself groaned like a dying beast. Kane stood tall, his hand raised. Fire! The shot screamed across the void, a slug of pure fury. All of humanity's grief and defiance forged into one strike. It tore into the prime core, cracking crystal, shattering towers. The glow flickered, then erupted in a storm of light. The shockwave was endless. Alien ships burst apart. Immortals across the galaxy fell silent. Their eternity was gone, the gods were dead. The Revenant was caught in the blast. Her hull split, decks collapsed, fire roared through her veins. The crew clung to life as systems failed one by one. The ship had given everything. Kane stood in the burning bridge watching the core die. His lips curved in a faint smile. For Earth, he whispered. Silence followed. The Revenant drifted, a ruin among ruins. But across human space, the tide shifted. Chains of fear broke, colonies rose. Humanity stood unbowed, the gods were gone. Yet in the farthest corners of space, a signal stirred older than the immortals, deeper than their stolen eternity. A voice whispered from the dark. You killed the thieves of heaven. But what will you do when the true masters awaken? And so the Revenant's story did not end. It became legend. A flame burning in the hearts of every human. Proof that no god is eternal and no tyrant unbreakable. Humanity had fought. Humanity had bled. Humanity had endured. The immortals were dead. But the stars still held secrets. And the war for eternity had only just begun.